Is an insulin pump, in your perspective, the only way of achieving good blood sugars?
That's a big question. I mean, the technology is great. It's really changed the life of many people, myself included.
So the way I think about the pumps that are in the market right now, the one that frees up the most brain power, you get the most flexibility to just go live your life and have a pump take care of you, would be the...
I could not live without it. I just know I need it.
How easy is it to switch from one system to another?
Relatively easy. I would not use a pump that... Hey everyone, welcome to the Diabetes Unlocked podcast. I'm Tom.
And I'm Christelle, and between us we have over 60 years of experience living with type 1 diabetes.
Yes, and in this episode we're taking a deep dive into insulin pumps, or said differently, automated insulin delivery systems.
I've used an insulin pump in the past, but it wasn't quite for me. But I know, Tom, that you really love them. So in this episode, we're going to do a deep dive and talk about a lot of the pros and the cons of insulin pumps, because we all deserve the choice that's best for us.
Yes, I love them. I'm a big fan and advocate for insulin pumps. And it's probably because I've been pumping for 25 years, more than 25 years. And it's just part of me. It's part of my body. The pump is just part of my body. I feel like that's the way it is. But let's be honest, it's not everything, sunshine and rosy all the time. There are some things that the pump companies make look really easy and really nice and great and super effective. But there are things that they're not telling you in the shiny marketing materials that I want to talk about as well in this video.
Absolutely. Are you ready to be grilled?
Yes. I'm definitely ready to be grilled. And we talked a little bit about insulin pumps before and compared them to insulin pens because we were comparing our two ways of managing diabetes. But I think in this video, I want to put myself a little bit more into the role of someone who is trying to convince you to at least give it a try, or like think about giving an insulin pump a try, because I know you're not in the camp of insulin pumps. You're not using a pump, because I think anyone watching this video is probably watching it because they might be considering starting on a pump or changing a pump. And so I really want to be an advocate because I think the technology is great and it's really changed the life of many people, myself included. And so it's worth maybe putting myself a little bit more on that scale to someone who is trying to sell you on a pump. But I will try to be objective. I will also mention things that are not so great.
I love that. Actually, I think that's a really, really cool way of doing it. So I'll try to be more anti-pump. I want to make sure that everybody who is listening knows that I'm actually not anti-pump. It's just not for me. I think there's different solutions that works for different people. But let's just dive directly into it. So the big question, Tom, because what I often hear is there's a lot of endocrinologists who are like pushing insulin pumps. And I want to say pushing insulin pumps as being the only way of achieving, the ideal blood sugar management for the individual. But, to be the only way of really being really successful. So is an insulin pump, in your perspective, the only way of achieving good blood sugars? Or we'll manage blood sugars, just use that wording instead.
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, we would have to first define what is good blood sugars, and I think that's very individual, and everyone will have a different angle on that, and everyone will have different goals and just sort of lifestyle, and just somebody wants to have HbA1c below 5.7%, and they want to have time in range above 90%. Other person might have different goals, time in range 70% and HbA1c 7%. And so I think definitely pumps are not the only way to achieve good control. For me personally, I can achieve better control with an automated insulin delivery system, aka hybrid closed loop, which is a system where a pump is connected to a glucose monitor and using an algorithm for, so the insulin delivery is to some extent automated. And for me, this really makes a huge difference, making my life easier, I would say. And I'm also achieving better numbers. Like I have better HbA1c, better time in range compared to when I'm doing MDI on vacation. Sometimes I do MDI and I just know I cannot hit 90 or 95% time in range with MDI. I just can't do it. So I think it's the better way for me. But I also want to say, like, it's not the only tool, and it's not, automated insulin delivery system is not an artificial pancreas. It's not gonna do everything for me and for anyone else. It just has its limitation, and I still need to do some work. And we probably get into like what it is.
So I think there's a few words that we just talked about that we might want to talk a little bit more about before we move on, because you said to those who listen who don't really know what an automated insulin delivery system is, so you said it works with a sensor. So that is continuous glucose monitor, right? And different pumps works with different ones. So it's not enough to just do finger stick if you want to automate it. The hybrid closed loop pump, you can still use a pump without a CGM, but if you want the hybrid closed loop pump functionality, you need to use a CGM. So I think for this episode, we're probably going to focus. Do you want to just focus on the hybrid closed loop pumps or insulin pumps in general?
I would just like to focus on hybrid closed loop pumps. We can touch on where there are some differences, but really, I think when we think about like what's on the market today in the countries where our reviewers are, which is mostly the US, UK, Canada, and some other European countries. I don't mean to leave out Australia or New Zealand, but most of these countries, I believe, have pumps with automated insulin delivery systems available, and it's like the preferred solution. So I think I would like to focus on those mainly. And of course, there are different models, and we can talk about how the integration works with specific sensors. But I would stick to the automated delivery because I think that's where it's at, and I think that's the biggest benefit of insulin pump in general. There's an algorithm that does a lot of work for us.
Okay, so if you're to give like the elevator pitch to someone who doesn't know about insulin pumping, just how does it work? So if I'm like newly diagnosed or if I've been on MPIs, multiple daily injections my whole life, and you meet me for the first time, you're like, hey, Christelle, I think you should be on a hybrid closed loop pump. And I'll be like, what is that? How would you explain that?
Well, that's a great question. And I think a good analogy to use is like when we think about driving a car, like fully manual car with a stick shift, without self-driving function and without cruise control, that's like sort of what you are doing in my eyes, right? So what I'm doing with an AID system, I think I'm driving a car that is, I don't have a stick shift. I have automated transmission, so I don't need to change gears manually most of the time. And I also have some sort of cruise control. Like when I sleep, for example, there is a safety net that the pump puts in for me, so I don't go into a different lane. And when I'm saying the lane, I mean like the blood sugar being in range. So I think of the blood sugar staying in range as sort of like driving the car in my lane and not hitting the car that's in front of me and like going at the speed that's like the speed limit on that highway, right? So there's a lot of safety nets with an automated insulin delivery system because the pump knows what my glucose is from the CGM. The CGM is feeding the glucose information to the pump, and then the pump is using an algorithm to decide if it should give me my standard background insulin, or if it should maybe step on the gas pedal to give me a little bit more insulin when my glucose is going up, or hit the brake when it sees I'm going low and stop the insulin delivery or suspend the insulin delivery or just reduce it for a limited time. And all these things with all these systems happen. Sometimes they happen a little bit differently, but there is always this safety net that's working for you when you're not paying attention to 100% to your numbers, or you're not checking your blood sugar. You don't need to look at your CGM. So you don't need to do a lot of things. So when you do everything manually on insulin pens, I need to think of, okay, I need to look at my CGM. What is my blood sugar? And then do I need to do a correction? Do I need to maybe eat something to keep it where I want to keep it at the target level? The pump will have the target level set, and the algorithm will always step on the gas pedal, give more insulin, or hit the brake and give less insulin just to stay in that target range, depending on where you set it. So I said that's my elevator pitch. I guess that's the main thing, is doing a lot of things for you and taking a lot of thinking out of your head and like a lot of work out of your plate. But you still have to do some things. It's not like you don't have to do anything, because otherwise you're definitely gonna hate it. So what you have to do is like, it's a cruise control. It's not a full self-driving function. So
I love these analogies.
I will still have to, well, first of all, when I eat, I will need to, the pre-meal insulin, I will need to tell the pump I'm eating, and I will have to manually, some pumps have more, are better than others. So with some pumps, you can put in the carb count. Most pumps, you put in the carb count, and then the pump has a calculator to suggest your mealtime dose, right? There's also iLet pump that you don't even need to put in the carb count. You just tell the pump I'm eating, it's a small meal, big meal, or medium-sized meal, and the pump decides how much insulin you need, which, you don't need to count carbs, which is kind of nice. We can get into that later, but still, definitely you need to bolus before you eat, and you need to get your settings right, because if your settings in the pump is not right, if you put random numbers in the pump, you will not get good results because the pump will be working with wrong data. And I'm getting a bit into a rabbit hole here with this answer, so maybe I'll kick it back to you. I think like that's the main. That was not a very good elevator pitch, I know.
No,
But
no, I think it is. It's interesting because that part, or you have to figure out what's on your plate and you have to dose for food. That's the same for us on
yeah,
pens, right? So that's the
yes,
same thing. I use an InPen, which is a smart insulin pen from Medtronic. It's not a sale for Medtronic. It is a sale for InPen because
right.
it's brilliant. That one I can also enter my carbs and it will suggest how much insulin I should take for that meal. So that's the same. That's basically something they borrowed from pumpers, right? It's called the Bowles calculator. So that part is the same. I think the way that I think about pumps being different is sort of all the other stuff. It's everything that's going on outside of meals.
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
I'm on pens, so I inject a long-acting insulin. That's my background. And then I take my mealtime or rapid-acting insulin for meals and corrections. So, and I'm supposed to be against pumps. I get so, but what I see the outside to pumps is that it kind of takes care of all the other stuff. But for me, that was actually also the problem, that it took care of all the other stuff because it
Mhm.
drips. It does not use a long-acting insulin, right? So it used that rapid-acting insulin, the mealtime insulin, 24/7. And for me, that had some implications. So we can talk about those a little later, maybe. But it's the way I see the system is that it drips all this insulin. So it can drip more if you need more. So if your blood sugar starts to climb, it can drip more. And if your blood sugar starts to drop, it can shut off insulin delivery. However, what's already delivered is delivered.
Exactly.
But I guess that's the big safety feature. So for a lot of people, it can keep you in range. Can you talk a little bit more about range? Because again, if people are not on a CTM necessarily right now, or insulin pump, they might not know what this time and range thing is.
Right. So time in range, recommended time in range is between 70 and 180 milligrams per deciliter. In millimoles per liter, this is between 3.9 and 10 for those who are in Europe, maybe using different units. So that's the range that's recommended by the Diabetes Association. It's not something that the pump company comes up with. But each pump will have certain settings. So at some pumps, for example, let's maybe make an example with Omnipod 5, for example, you can set your target glucose anywhere between 110 and 150. And so what the pump is doing basically all the time is when it's dripping the insulin, every 5 minutes it drips a little bit of insulin. The goal is, depending on how your glucose is moving, to bring you closer to this target value. I usually use 110 with Omnipod 5 when I use that pump. And so, if you are at 200, theoretically the pump will bring you to 110 at some point. It will take a while because the pump is usually quite conservative, and especially Omnipod 5 is quite conservative. But if you don't do anything and you're not on an AID, you will still be at 200 in 5 hours later. Right? With the pump, it might take a few hours, but it should bring you to your target value. And I think that's a big benefit of a pump, especially at night, because it's not a safety net against low blood sugar, but it's sort of like a safety net against high blood sugar. So if you're really high in the middle of the night or you're sleeping, the pump will just start dosing more and dripping more insulin. The same thing is with going low. And again, Omnipod 5, for example, is doing prediction 60 minutes ahead of time. So when it sees that you are, maybe 95 and your blood glucose is going low, and in 60 minutes it would go under 70, it will completely stop or shut off the insulin delivery to avoid you going into hypo. So you can be still sleeping and you will not have a hypo most of the time because the pump will just bring you up. Some pumps are better at preventing lows. Omnipod 5 is extremely good at preventing lows, but it's not as good when it comes to correcting high blood sugars. Some other pumps, I think good example is the Tandem pump or Medtronic pump. It is really good at, correcting high blood sugars more aggressively. But I feel from my experience with Tandem, Control-IQ and the algorithm that Tandem is using is not as good when it comes to preventing low blood sugars. So like there are different algorithms, and each of these algorithms is a little bit different. And I think when one is choosing a pump, it's also a good idea to not only think about the form factor of each pump, how it looks, if it's a tube pump or tubeless, but also about how the algorithm works. And some people might be more worried or concerned with low blood sugars. Some people might be more concerned with high blood sugars. And so it's one of the things that goes into decision making. But I guess I'm getting ahead of me. I just wanted to sort of explain how those the target range works, and how the pump is trying to always bring you back to the target range by just giving you more background insulin or less background insulin, or shutting it off. So I guess that's how they do it. Should I go even deeper into that and talk about correction boluses, or not yet?
You're actually starting to answer the next question I had lined up in my mind.
Okay.
So this is all good. I think I would love to hear a little bit more about. So my understanding is that the reason why Tandem is a little faster is it gives like corrections, where as some of the other pumps just increases or decreases the basal rates and the background rate. So there is a difference between like giving you a boost of insulin and then just giving you a little bit more in the background.
Yes.
But I think it would be really interesting for me and everyone else to also hear like, well, which systems have you tried? And then maybe we can weave that into also the answer of which ones have been best in different situations. So this is like pulling it back to Tom, putting you on the spot again, like, because I know we try like everything. That's kind of what I also love about our discussions. It's rarely theoretical because you actually have the deep like experience, which is cool.
Yeah, so I'll try my best. So I'll only be focusing on the new pumps that have the algorithm that are sort of like on the market. So I tried Omnipod 5. I already talked about that. I tried Tandem's T-Slim X2. Actually, I can show it on the camera if someone is watching. T-Slim X2 is this bigger pump from Tandem that I tried. There is also Tandem Mobi, which is using the same algorithm as the T-Slim X2, but it's smaller, also from Tandem. And then Omnipod 5, you see, is a lot smaller. It's a patch pump that's worn on the body. And then I also tried Ipsopump. I will not talk much about it. It's like a really nice, sleek pump, but it's only available in Europe and I think Australia, so I don't want to go too deep into that. I think we should probably focus more on Tandem and Omnipod. And another algorithm I tried is the DIY solution, which is called Loop, where it's a non-commercial system that you cannot get prescription for. It's basically an algorithm that's developed by the type 1 diabetes community that's really good. I tried that one too, and this is the one I'm using right now. If I were to compare maybe these three solutions, like we need to always decide, okay, do I want to have more control and do more work, or do I need to have less control? Do I want the pump to do more work, but then I have less flexibility to change things? Like, in other words, do I want to move a lot of little knobs all the time, turn them right and left, or do I just want the pump to do as much work as possible and I just sit back and relax and do like the absolute minimum? I think the DIY solution, DIY Loop, is definitely at the very end of I'm doing a lot of work. I'm using a lot of automation, but I'm also doing a lot of work myself. And I'm achieving like really tight control because I have all these presets. I can change so many things. I can put a lot more inputs to the pump. On the other hand of the spectrum, I would put, of those that I tried, Omnipod 5, where so many things are automated. Sometimes I don't even know what the pump is really doing, but it's doing the job. But it's a limited space for me to step in and to say, okay, now we will not do what you want to do with basal insulin. We will do something else. It's just more limited. So the control is not, I guess, cannot be that tight from my perspective on Omnipod 5 compared to DIY Loop. The Tandem pump is very close to the DIY Loop, but it's not as good. I would say you have a lot more things you can change. You can turn more buttons left and right, but yeah, you have to do more work if you want good control. But I think I personally can get better control with Control IQ compared to Omnipod 5, for example. And then maybe just a little bit about the Ipsopump from Ipsomed. This one works with CAM-APS algorithm, which is like extremely good algorithm. And there it's also giving you I think it's giving you best of both worlds. You can set your target range very wide on the IPSA pump. With Tandem, you cannot basically set your target range. It is set for you, and you cannot really change it. With Omnipod 5, you can change it, but only within the range of 110 to 150. With this one, you can go from, I think, 85 or 87 up to 200. So it's like a really wide range. I dropped half of the pump. And then with DYR loop, the range is also like extremely wide. You are very flexible. You can set your target glucose to very low or very high compared to these other tools. So it's always a balancing act between how much control you want to have and how much automation you want to have, and like how tight you want to be involved, how much you want to be involved, if that makes sense. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. I think so. The way I think about the pumps that are in the market right now, the one that probably frees up the most brain power, but where you get the most flexibility to just go live your life and have a pump take care of you, would be the iLet insulin pump, because that one doesn't even require carb counting. You just put in kind of like large, small meal, and it takes care of that. But it'll also manage your blood sugars. I think it's up to 7A1C. I think that's the goal set. I don't remember, so don't quote me on that. But I think whereas the do-it-yourself, the looping, is the one where you can, I don't even know if it's the one where you can set it the lowest anymore, because Twist is coming out, and Twist you can set down to 84 or 86, I think, and up to 180 something. But that one is also built on do-it-yourself technology, right? I think.
Right. So Twist is using, so Twist is a new pump that was approved in the US and will be coming to the market in this quarter. Twist is based off of the loop algorithm. So the Twist pump is using the loop algorithm, but it's not quite true. So this is the message that's being sort of feeded to us, but it's not quite, the algorithm is quite limited. So not all the features that I have on DIY loop are available on Twist. Actually, when I saw it at the conference, it's more limited than I thought it would be. Like, big advantage of the pump is you can really set the target range very wide with Twist, but there are some limitations when it comes to custom preset modes, because with Loop you can pre-program certain custom presets. So let's say when I'm in the office, I can say, whenever I'm in the office, I turn on the office work preset and I tell the pump, give me 120% of the insulin you would normally give me. I'm still in automated mode. I'm just getting more insulin and still using the algorithm to work for me. And I also tell the pump, do it for another 3 hours. So I can have a preset, okay, for the next 3 hours, you'll be giving me 20% more insulin and still be in the automated mode. And I can set these conditions however I want. I can say, okay, maybe I want 200% for 8 hours, or I want 50% for 2 hours. I can customize this, and I can create as many presets as possible. Maybe there is a limit, but you can create many of them. You cannot do that with Twist. With Twist, you have just an activity preset for exercise, which brings your target up, I think, and like gives you less insulin. But you don't have these other customizations. There's another great customization on DIY Loop is, when you put in your insulin for meals, when you bolus, you can tell the pump or the algorithm what type of meal you are eating and what is the effective time, how long this meal will be raising your blood sugar, which is like a great feature, because when you're eating something that is quick carbohydrates, the pump will give you your bolus right away. When it's something that takes longer to digest, then it will spread the insulin over a longer time. And Twist has this one. Twist has. So that's a great benefit of Twist, because it has this food option that's really good.
Yeah.
And iLet, I don't have much experience with iLet. I don't know what's like the official goal or target it can reach. The only thing I know is that when you start on the pump, you put in your weight and the pump just starts dosing insulin. You don't tell the pump, what should be my base load, what should be my bolus. It just starts dosing insulin based on your weight. And then every time you eat, you say it's a small meal, medium-sized, or large meal. And then the pump somehow figures out how much insulin to give you. and it's learning over time, I guess, based on how these things play out, and it should be getting better over time. And maybe that's a good bridge to another thing we should probably talk about, that some pumps are adjusting to your body or like learning from the historical data points, and some pumps are just not learning anything, it's just working with the data you give them. And I think that's a big difference, actually, if you know what I mean.
I agree. Do you have a preference? I know I do. Had not been on them, I have a theoretical preference.
Yeah, so my preference is to have more control, and I think when the pump is learning about your body, it's great. When you have, and especially when you have your every day is the same, and then the pump learns how your day works, how much insulin you need every day, then it can work really well. But when every day is different, and then the pump cannot really effectively learn. So I think Alet cannot really learn the lifestyle of someone who is running all day on Monday and then sitting in the office all day on Tuesday. I think that's like impossible. I think that pump would fail for that person. Like, I'm pretty confident to say that. But with the pump, like, with the tandem pump or the DII solution, this is perfect for this, because you can have 2 custom presets and you just change the mode on the pump, and it will just work very well. So my preference is
Those pumps
definitely
kind of like adjust to here now, and the other ones try to learn you. I'm with you. I mean, but that's also because I think maybe you and I are not the norm, because I think there's some statistics saying that most people do the same thing over and over. And then, of course, they're going to have some days where they're sick or on vacation or whatever. Everything's going to be different. The pump is going to have a harder time figuring out. But that might be like 2 weeks out of the year or something like that. I find it really hard to see a system working for me that would adjust to one day, because my days are so different.
Mhm.
But yeah.
I mean, I can see you using the Control IQ Plus algorithm, the new one from Tandem. I think you could get really good results with that one. Also Loop, I think, would be great. It's just a lot of, I don't want to recommend that. I don't want to push Loop to everybody. I mean, it's my favorite system, but I know it's basically a off-label solution. Like, it's not even, it's actually not a commercial tool. But I think with Control IQ Plus algorithm, you have a lot of flexibility, right? You just need to know what to focus on. But if your days are different, if your Monday and Tuesday is different, on Tandem Pump, you can have two different modes. One is like a workday mode, and one is the exercise day mode, or whatever, like a weekday and weekend. And you can, at the beginning of each day, you can just switch. Okay, today is a weekend, or today is the exercise day, and you can have a different basal profile, and so your background insulin can be fine-tuned to 2 types of days, if you know what I mean, or even more than 2. But you can do that, and then the only thing you need to do is to switch between those, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Let me play the devil's advocate here a little bit based on my own experience. So when I used a pump, an insulin pump, I went directly to the most complicated solution. So I looped. I got my hands on an old Medtronic insulin pump because I was the only ones that really worked with it back then. I think you're doing it with a different pump, right?
Yes, I'm doing looping with Omnipod Dash with an iPhone, basically. Yeah.
So, but when I tried it, so the main reason why I decided, hey, I'm going to try an insulin pump. This was not because my endocrinologist suggested, because she's like, Christelle, you have great care right now on pens. Why are you making your life more complicated? And I'm like, because I want even better care or whatever. But one of the things was that I was annoyed with my nighttime blood sugars. I wanted an easier solution for nighttime blood sugars. And I fully believe that insulin pumps are the ideal option for nighttime blood sugars. My problem was, and it worked for that, my problem was that because it drips rapid-acting insulin 24/7, it ended up being so much work for me because I'm very active, and for most days, I don't just sit on my bum at home. I'm like, all of a sudden I'm out and I'm working out or go for my insanely long walks, as we know, and doing all these things. And in order to not go low, because rapid-acting insulin gets really impacted by exercise for me, I had to constantly do like exercise mode, discontinue the pump, set different basal rates, and I ended up having a boatload of lows during the day. And ultimately, that might have given me a lower A1C, but not a lower healthy A1C. So for me, it was just a lot of extra work. aside from nighttime, definitely not better blood sugars. Plus, going low all the time is just draining.
Right.
So that's why I stopped.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's great to hear, by the way, that you had good control overnight. I think that's great. So, I mean, I just again like I will be like talking a little bit like more like an advocate for you going on an insulin pump. Like I want to really make you go on an insulin pump. I know you won't probably, but the thing is, if I was experiencing what you are describing, and that happens to me, I can have a day with multiple low blood sugars. Let's keep it real. That happens, and it's not like one day in a year. It just happens sometimes. That tells me usually that I am like too aggressive somewhere, and it's depending on how these lows happen exactly. I'm usually able to figure out where it is. I'm suspecting, like in your case, if you were having like let's say 4 low blood sugar events during the day, it's just telling me like in general that I would, if this happened to me, I'm probably having too much basal. I'm just having too much background insulin, because otherwise, every time I start moving, I go low. It means I just have too much insulin on board. So I would be thinking to maybe reduce to see if reducing a basal rate, or like activating the activity mode for like a longer period of time, or like ahead of time, if that could help. If you know what I mean. That would be like the first thing I would be thinking. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think no, but that's also obviously the only reason someone with living with insulin-dependent diabetes goes low is if we have too much insulin on board. So that's kind of my point is I end up spending so much time reducing insulin because my base for just sitting around was right. But the second I started moving, I needed much less insulin. So just going for a walk, for example, required 2 hours planning.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on MDI, unless I took like a big dose for correction of food, that's not the case for me. So for me, again, it just ended up being more work. Will I never try an insulin pump again? I might try an insulin pump again just because I'm curious. And also the systems are getting easier, and not easier, are getting like smarter, I would say. The big thing for me is actually not the insulin pumps. The big thing for me is the insulin. If we could get insulin that lasts quicker in the body, it's more like an in and out, kind of like somebody with a healthy pancreatic system. I think I would be more of a go team pumper, but okay, let's pull it back from Christelle being like mad at pumps. Let's talk a little bit more about the different pumps. So we talked a little bit about if people are to explore pumps, do you want more control? Do you want less control? Do you want to be more involved? Do you want to be less involved? So those are some of the things that we kind of talked about people thinking about. And obviously in the States, it also depends on what your insurance company is willing to pay for. But when you switch between, how easy is it to switch between the different systems? So if I start one system and then down the line, my insurance decides that, hey, this is not the system we cover anymore, or my doctor suggests I try something else, how easy is it to switch from one system to another?
It is relatively easy, but it requires some work, definitely, and some learning curve. There's always a learning curve. Maybe before I get into that detail, I think I just want to double click on one thing that you said, because you said that the technology is getting better and the pumps are getting better. And I can sign that. Like every pump or every new algorithm I try over time, over those 25 or almost 30 years that I was pumping, every time it's a little bit better. And it's now more for me to find, okay, there's now so many options on the market, or many options on the market. There could always be more, of course, that I just need to see, okay, which one is the right one for me. And so I will talk about how easy it is to switch. But I think, if I were to start, just like not switch, but like just start from, going from MDI to pump for the first time, I would really think about, more things, not just, how much I want to be involved and how tight control I want, but also I would probably think about the form factor. Like, do I want something that's on my body, like the Omnipod, that's like connected to me 24/7. I cannot take it off. Basically, I need to have it there all the time. I need to sleep in a bed with it. I know how comfortable it will be to lie on it. It's not very comfortable. I basically just lie on the other side. Or do I want something that has a tube where, I can move it around? I can put it in one pocket or on my belt or in another pocket. When I sleep, it's more convenient because I can just put it next to me, but I can, I just have this tube, so when I'm like active, when I'm running around, like, does it bother me? What's my lifestyle? I think the form factor is sometimes even like more important than the algorithm almost, because many people just live lives, surprisingly. They don't only care about like how tight the control is. And so I would also think about this, like how much will I be bothered by one thing or the other. And there are these free trials where I think most countries, especially in the US, most people have a chance to do a free trial. Well, not everyone, probably. It depends on eligibility, but I think this is worth it. But there is definitely a learning curve which with each pump. Like when you're starting for the first time, it's pretty steep. When you're switching, it's not that steep, but it's still there, because every pump is a little bit different and it requires a little bit different way of thinking. We don't need to go too deep into that. What I would say is, with those pumps like iLet or Omnipod 5, where there's generally more automation, the learning curve is a little bit easier, because you don't need to learn so many things, I guess, or there's not that many options where you can fine-tune things manually, that you don't need to learn that much. And you can start, especially with iLet, you just put in your weight and then you just tell the pump small meal, big meal, medium-sized meal, and that's pretty much it. So that's, I have not experienced this one personally, but I think, switching to this one, it's not a very steep learning curve probably. But I think I would go crazy, because I would know, like, okay, today I will be sitting at home all day and there's no way for me to tell the pump to give me more insulin. There's just no, and I think that would drive me crazy. So I'm definitely on that side. I want to have this control. But if to learn the Tandem's algorithm, I think it's a little bit more tricky, or at least you need to put in more information. Like, you need to know this for all systems except iLet. You need to know your insulin to carb ratio. You need to know your correction factor. You need to know your basal rates, your background insulin. And this is definitely something you talk about with your doctor. But to figure these things out, going from MDI, it's not always straightforward. And, there's things that might adjust. I'm on different systems. I use different insulin to carb ratios. For example, on Omnipod 5 and Tandem Control IQ, I use different insulin to carb ratios and correction factors. And the same with Loop. I use different correction factors, just because these systems are a little bit different. So there is it's tough to switch. It's tough because it's just requires like different way of thinking. And even for me, trying so many systems, now I'm happy with Loop, and I'm not so excited about trying a new one, because this one works really well for me. But I could not live without it. I just know I need it. So if I couldn't have the Loop, it just was discontinued or banned or made illegal or whatever, and Apple deleted it from my iPhone, I would probably just pick a Tandem Mobi or Omnipod 5. But I just know that I would end up with a different AID system, and I would just adjust. But it requires some brain power, definitely.
But before we freak people out completely, I would say, if you have an endocrinologist or diabetes nurse, I would have the expectation that they would help me with those ratios. I don't think you're allowed, well, I don't, allowed is a hard word. You're not expected to start an insulin pump on your own. I don't think they just ship it to you and then they're like, bye, good luck. But I don't know.
Yes, I think I'm talking like I'm making it sound like I'm doing everything myself under the table. But I just think about this, like, I make all these treatment decisions myself because I'm self-managed. And so of course, always, there's your medical team involved, setting you up and helping you with these ratios, or actually, I guess they should be giving you all these ratios and advising you on everything like that. And there is, with all the pumps I started on, there was always someone who showed me how the pump works, at least for the commercial solution. So I had actually like an in-person meeting with someone who would walk me through, how do I fill the pump with insulin? How do I apply the infusion set? How do I fill in the cannula? Or how I change the settings and everything like that? I always got this nice presentation, and there was always someone available to walk me through this. And so now I'm doing it more on my own, and I have all the knowledge, so it's definitely easier for me. But I guess I don't want to freak people out. Sorry if I'm taking it. I'm thinking too selfishly from my perspective, what I experienced, without considering the wider public. That might freak people out. That was not my intention, definitely.
No, but I mean, to that, I would say, for the way I always talk about insulin pens is that the way I think the only way to be really successful is also to be involved. So let's assume that people want to be involved. I change my ratios whenever needed. And like you, I'm
Mhm.
self-managed, I do that myself. Would you, I mean, you also change your ratios. So it is something that you as a pump user can do yourself. But I would say until you kind of figure out how things are going and all of that, you definitely want to keep your medical team really involved. And
Hmm.
I think some people, even when they make changes, they just like send it to their medical team first and have it sort of vetted. But that's got to be the official statement is don't make any changes to your care without discussing it with your medical team. Disclaimer,
Right.
disclaimer.
Right. And we're not doctors, we're just sharing what we are doing. Yeah, but I think
So Tom,
people
do you never take a pump break? I think some people call it like a pump vacation, where they get off the pump and then use insulin pens for a while, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I do. I took one last summer, and I think we talked about it a little bit in our first or second episode. So I do take pump breaks, and that one was a little bit longer that I took last year because I was trying the same pen that you are using. But it's not, I don't do this very often. And I right now, after going back from the pen to the pump, I was kind of enjoying the last pump break because with the pen I just had this like flexibility. I didn't have to think of supplies. I just grab the insulin pen and just go. That's kind of nice because with the pump you always need to think about like when do I need to fill it, when the cannula I need to change the cannula, I need to bring a spare pod and things like this. It's kind of nice to not have to think about it. But I just like overall I feel like I had to be more involved in like the dosing and like taking the injections and just doing quite a lot of work. So I do take pump breaks for sure. And it's on a vacation when you're at the beach. It's kind of nice to not have to have it pump on, especially if you care about how you look, which I do, of course.
Well, I know some of the pumps are more or less water. I think they're all like water resistant now, right? Well, I don't know, but you probably shouldn't leave your insulin pump out in the sun too long. There's some different things there.
Mm.
It's interesting, just going back to the whole thing about form factor. So, patch pump, which is an Omnipod. I guess the Tandem Mobi is sort of a hybrid because that one has a tube, but it also has a sleeve so you can wear it on your body.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, the sleeve looks big, but I mean, that's a different thing. So there's the ones that are on body, and then there's the ones that's just a tubing, and you can have them like clipped on your belt. So the pump I wore was with tubing, and I ran into, there's all these diabetes memes of, things that happens with insulin pumps. All of that happened, like getting stuck on doorknobs when you come like walking
Yeah.
down the hallway and you get stuck. Tubing gets stuck, or if you have to go to the restroom, you pull down your pants and the pump is on your belt and everything kind of goes flying. So I've done all of that, but I actually don't remember the form factor being the most quote unquote annoying part. The reason why this popped into my head is I always fill out questionnaires online. I love being part of research and all that. And the question's always, have you used an insulin pump? I was like, yes. They're like, would you use one again? I was like, not right now. They're like, why? Is it because of the form? And I'm like, no, that's not the main thing for me. I know it will be for some people. For me, it was extra work without extra benefit. I think that's the main one.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's like any of our diabetes devices. You have to get used to them. And for right now, wearing a CGM on the back of my arm, I usually don't do that because I don't like wearing it there. But wearing it on the back of the arm means I have to be mindful when I take off clothes, like female athletes, taking off sports bras while wearing a sensor on the arm is a pain in the neck because you rip it off half the time. So there's just all these things, and you have to think your devices, I guess, both into your lifestyle and into your preferences.
Yeah, and it's a great point because when I take a pump break, it's just one less thing to think about. Like when I'm taking off my t-shirt or going to the bathroom, like this is this thing with the tube pump when you go to the bathroom, or when you sit on the toilet, and like where do you want to put it? Like I usually keep it in my pocket, but then I realized, I mean, this is gonna sound weird. We're just gonna cut it out. But one day I was at the airport and I went to the bathroom, and then sometimes you have these doors where you can see like if someone is inside, like sitting on the toilet in the bathroom, like you can kind of see their shoes and their pants that are like dropped to the ankles, right? And I realized I never drop my pants when I sit on the toilet to do what I need to do. I never drop my pants all the way on the floor like to my ankles. And I think the reason is because I used the tube pump for such a long time that whenever you do it, it will just like you will rip it out of your body if the tubing is not long enough. And so I figured, oh, I'm probably the only person at this airport who doesn't do this, because like you could see like 3 people in the bathroom with 3 guys with the pants all the way down. And so it's like all these little things. Or it's like another story. I was listening to Justin, Diabetic. He also has a podcast, and he was talking about his experience with Moby. And he really didn't like the tubing, because I think he's also on Omnipod. And he was talking about, like, when he's getting dressed, that he doesn't know where to put the pump with the tubing, because he needs like both of his hands to pull the pants on. And it's actually like a real struggle. But I again, like when I was on a tube pump, I just disconnected. I took a shower. I put on my underwear, and then I connected again. I clicked the pump to my underwear, and then I took off the rest of the clothes, and then I stick it in my pocket. So I think there's like always, for someone who's starting on a pump, it's like all these little things that like sort of automated for someone who's been on a pump for so long time, but things that you need to figure out. And I guess where I'm getting at with this is, when someone starts on a certain pump, I think it's always good to talk to people who are on that specific pump, to like hear where they are putting it. Like, are they clipping it to the bra or to the belt, or like, are they using some special clip, or where they put it when they sleep, or with like Omnipod, how do they actually sleep? Or because it's like you get all these like real life inputs that you don't always get from the person who trains you on the algorithm or on the pump. But it's like the real life experience often solves all these little problems that people might have. And I think it's the same with like everything diabetes. I'm sure you have also struggles with injections, that like, when you talk to someone else, they might have some tips that can help. I mean, I hope some of the crazy stories I'm sharing here will help someone.
I love them. That should go on the big poster when they're doing the next ad for Omnipod. You don't have to drop your pants.
Yeah, I should sell it today. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's kind of what we talked about a lot. Is like life is more than just managing our blood sugars, right? Life is also, well, how do you sleep at night, and is the pump in the way? And you have to weigh out, each of us has to weigh out the pros and cons of all the different systems. Are you part of any of the, I know there are Facebook groups for some of these different insulin pumps where people can sort of discuss the pros and cons, like troubleshoot together. Are you part of any of those?
I am, but there's just so many Facebook groups. I mean, I can't keep up, and I'm not very active. Are you active in the Facebook groups? Do you actually go there? Because I almost don't go there anymore. It's just like too many notifications. I can't keep up.
Well, I have a Facebook group, and this is not to advertise that one, but that's where I spend the most time, and that's not specific for one product. So I think I was part of the InPen Facebook group for a while, but I kind of feel like I have a good handle on it, so I don't really go there anymore. But I do see people, like, especially my own Facebook group and the Diabetes Strong Facebook group, talk about different products, different pumps, saying, hey, I'm starting something new. What do you guys recommend? So I think it's a good way to get input from others, but I think if anyone listening decides to go to a Facebook group, just be careful that you don't necessarily just take medical advice from random strangers on the internet, because sometimes with some of the stuff I see, I'm like, that's not how I would say it, or I would strongly recommend, you talk to a medical team about it. But I think it's a good place to get ideas. And personal stories, personal experiences are not always something you can get from your medical team. So I do think there's power in it, for sure.
What's the name of your Facebook group, Crystal?
It's just the Diabetes Strong community.
Okay, good. I will join after this.
I hope you're not a member already? Come on.
I don't know. I need to check. I might be already, but I don't think I've ever been there. I will post something.
You're like, hi, it's me. So what would you say? Just kind of like bringing it back to pumps. I think we have a good idea why you like it. Is there any downsides to insulin pumps aside from, again, being clipped to your belt?
Yeah, well, definitely. I'm just like looking at my list. Like, I wrote some things here, and I realized I didn't mention like all these benefits that I have written here now, but when I'm looking at it. But like, let's talk about downsides. So I think, when I was a teenager, I really didn't want to show my diabetes tech. Like, I didn't want to show my diabetes at all, and I wanted to keep everything private. And when you're on an insulin pump, there's almost impossible to hide it completely at all times, like with MDI as well. But I guess MDI, you can take an injection, you just can close yourself somewhere, like barricade the door and take the injection and then come out. But with the pump, you come out of the room and the pump is still on your body. So it's something that just matters. I think it mattered to me when I was a teenager a lot, that I had something on my body that sort of was not no one else had it, and that made me sort of weird. And I would not say it's a negative of an insulin pump, but it's definitely something that I was thinking about a lot when I was a teenager. It just like sort of bothered me. It didn't bother me to the extent that I would not use it, but it's just something that was quite uncomfortable, and I often felt like I'm carrying this weird thing on me, and it makes me somehow I have diabetes. It's like a reminder of I have diabetes. So that's one thing, obviously, and we talked about it already on our previous chat about pumps. Is the infusion sites. Sometimes infusion site can fail. It just happens from time to time that you think that you are getting insulin. The pump is dosing insulin, but blood sugar starts going up unexpectedly, and that's usually the case. Is the pump site just failed, or like the cannula is bent, or the insulin is not absorbed. These things just happen from time to time, and it's like really important to keep an eye on that. And when that happens, to sort of act and change the site, because you don't want to be without insulin, obviously. I think that's something that does not happen with injections or with MDI, but with the pump, I think with all the pumps I use, like regardless what model, it just happens sometimes. It's very infrequent, I would say. I don't want to scare anyone, but it happens, and it's definitely like a potential disadvantage, or at least like a thing to keep an eye out for, and bring always some shared supplies with you that you can change the site. So there's one more thing I written here about, because you put a bullet point here. What are the best and worst thing about insulin pumps? And yesterday I was on a call with Insulin customer service about my Omnipod, and I mean, I like Insulet. I worked with them. I use their pump. I like the pump. I love the form factor, but I hate the customer service so much. I think it's the worst customer service of all companies I ever called. And I'm already, when I have to order my sensor, my pumps, my Omnipods, I just already know this will not go well, and it didn't go well again yesterday. I mean, this is like a really bad experience that I'm having. So if you are listening, Insulet, please do something with this, because when I call Dexcom to order sensors, it takes 30 seconds, literally. When I call Omnipod, it takes 15 minutes. And they ask me all the questions in the world just to verify it's me. Although they have my phone number, I just have to confirm all the details. And it's just uncomfortable, and I don't know why it has to be this way. And another thing is I select the language when I call. I want to speak English, and the French guy picks up, starts speaking French to me. I just don't know why. Why do you have this selection when you just, Anyway, I know this is not the topic of this conversation, and I don't know if if this is just me. Maybe it's just me, and maybe other companies are similar to Insulet. I don't want to put them in the bad light, but you really have to fix this, guys. What do you think is is there anything else that is not so great about insulin pumps, that maybe the insulin pumps are not, and maybe the community is not talking about that much, that from your experience? I know you didn't like the fact that, all the time you had too much rapid acting insulin in your body, and when you are active, it just doesn't work for you. But is there something else that bothered you? Because otherwise you said everything was kind of good.
Well, there's amount of stuff. To your point, you have to have either the pots, which takes up a lot of space, or you have to have infusion sets and cartridges and all that stuff. And you have to have enough with you. You also have to have extra insulin with you. If your pump fails throughout the day, you also have to have extra insulin in a syringe with you, or a pen. We talked about travel in our previous podcast, and I thought I brought a lot. And then you told me all the stuff that you bring. I was like, oh my gosh, I do not need to bring a lot of stuff compared to you. So I say logistics, it seems like there's just more with pumps, which also leads to something else, which is cost. So here in the US, we usually pay per prescription. So looking at all the extra, of course, I have to buy needles and I have to buy my CGM. But if you're on a hyperclosed loop pump, you also have to buy the CGM. So that kind of cancels itself out. But that means I just need to buy 100 needles, I don't know, a month or whatever. That's a little box. So I think cost-wise, my inkling is that, having a pump is also more expensive on a month-to-month basis. So that would be the other thing, which is widely
Yes.
unfair.
Yes. I mean, it is definitely more expensive. And of course, depending on the insurance coverage, that might be like a bigger or smaller factor to decide for someone who's considering it. I mean, I would almost not say it's unfair because it's like, in my eyes, because I'm like pro insulin pump, let's say, I think it's a better technology or it's like a more sophisticated technology. So it's more expensive. For me, it's okay. I think it makes sense. I sort of take it the way it is. I don't not sort of like disappointed, but yeah, I mean, you're getting a lot of other benefits. I mean, I didn't even mention a lot of these things that I have still here. Like, for example, Medtronic now with their 780G pump, which we almost didn't talk about because I completely forgot about it. They have this 7-day infusion set now. So, how many injections do you take in 7 days, Crystal?
Let's say 30 maybe. Right.
30 in 7 days. So 4 a day.
30 to 40, yeah, depending on how much I'm.
Okay.
Actually, we should talk more about infusion set because that's a really good point. So the 780 Medtronic insulin pump is also just been approved with a Simplera here in the States. So that's a new CGM from Medtronic. So they're basically going to their whole system. You only need to change everything every 7 days. Whereas with the other insulin pumps, it's every 3 days.
Yeah.
That's actually another downside to pumps is that you have to do this whole like changing of infusion sets and pumps and not the pods, but the pods every 3 days.
Right. But instead of 40 injections, you just do 1 infusion set, right? And by the way, I think you take more than 40 injections because 40 injections in a week, it's only 6 a day. And as I know you, you're doing all these macro corrections, sometimes even when we are recording. So, okay, I believe you, but I have my doubts.
Look it up in live data.
Yeah, let's look at it. But like, I mean, it's clearly better to be on a pump, just do like 1 infusion set than 40 injections. No, I mean, it's so much better. So much less needles that go in your body.
That is true. That's actually whenever people ask me like pump over pen, I think the only way to be really successful on pens is if you're willing to do the injections that you need to do. If you think you can get away with just doing 2 injections a day or whatever, if you're MDI, then I don't think you'll be successful. Although there are some people saying they pretty much only do the background insulin, so long-acting insulin, so super low carbers. So maybe that was not my experience when I was super low carb, but I'm not ruling out that other people could be successful that way. And that is a main thing for both of us. I know that main thing is not to try and push anyone to do anything, is to give you information so you can choose what's best for you now, right? Because, maybe I've had people reach out to me, go like, I'm on a pump, I hate it. What do I do? It's like, maybe it's not for you. Or maybe the system that you're on is not for you. Or maybe it's not for you right now. It's okay to make changes. I think a lot, and I do the same thing. Kind of we start something and we feel like, okay, now we have to stick with it.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to change.
Yeah. And I would say if I'm on a pump and I hate it, I would try to think about like what specifically I hate about it. And there's always something to point to. And I think, if it's going low all the time, think about, do I really have the right basal rates set up? Can I maybe change some? Can I be like more proactive? 1 hour, 2 hours before the exercise? Can I turn on the activity mode or reduce the insulin delivery before the exercise, or like eat a little bit before? Or if it's something else, if it's because the pump just bothers me on body when I sleep. When I started with Omnipod, it just bothered me. I'm used to sleep on my side, and I just use both sides of my body to sleep. Like sometimes I sleep on the right side, sometimes on the left side. And with Omnipod, like and sometimes I lie on my back, and when I'm driving, It bothers me when it's on my back, so I couldn't quite figure out where to put it. So what I do now is I think about what I will be doing in the next 3 days. Okay, if I won't be driving, I put it on my back because I sleep on the sides. If I will be driving, then maybe I do the belly or the arm, and sometimes I do the sides just to rotate, but not all the time. So I can use them for sleeping. Yeah, there can be a million things I think that can bother you about a pump. But if you're unhappy, I think like talking to someone who's using the same pump, maybe they have a tip for you. I think that can help a lot, because every time I'm listening to a conversation about a specific pump, there's always something I learn from it that I use in the future. Don't give up. Don't give up. I'm a
It is
pump
kind of like
advocate.
learning a new language, right? When you start, I think when you go from pen to pump or pump to pen, or through, maybe not so much when you go between different pumps, that's more of a dialect. But if you're starting a new system, it's kind of like learning a new language. And it just, to your point, it takes time. I would give it a chance, but you don't have to live with a decision for the rest of your life, in the sense that it is okay to shift course. You mentioned different placements. That's important, right? So one of the things that are important with pump is you should not place your pump infusion set or the pot the same place over and over again, because that can lead to scar tissue that hinders absorption of insulin. Not a good combo. So do you have a strategy or a set pattern for rotating your pod?
Well, what I do is I usually put my pod on the same side of my body where my Dexcom is. It's just something that I used to do with Omnipod 5, where the signal is going from Dexcom directly to the pump. So it sort of needs to be in one line of sight. Otherwise, when your body is in the middle, the signal cannot travel well through all the water that's in the body. So that's when I started doing this. Like every time I have a sensor on my right arm, I have my Omnipod on the right side of my body. And whenever I move it, then on the left side, I move my sensor there as well, or my pump there as well. So that's one rotation pattern that I use. And then I always try to think about like what I will be doing in the next couple of days or next few days. And then based on that, I also select the side, but I try to be mindful, like not overutilizing one side, because I think I talked about it in one of the previous episodes. When I was younger, or when I was a teenager, I was putting my infusion site all the time in my leg, like all the time in my leg. So that site really doesn't absorb insulin very well for me. So I need to like use other sides, and I've actually been looking for more. And now sometimes I use one like here on my ribs, sort of, which is not like, again, it's not like it's off label, but it's one that I found here that works really well for me under my arm on my ribs. That has like super great absorption, and it doesn't hurt anything, and it's nice hidden under my arm. So I like that. I like that one. But I think the rotation is really important, because a pump site for 3 days or 7 days under the skin just have more impact on the skin tissue than one injection with an insulin pen. There will be a more impact, and it needs longer time to recover and heal. So it's really important for someone who's been doing this for a long time. What about
I
you?
saw a lady at a
Do you rotate?
conference. I do, but I have to tell this one first. I saw a lady at a conference, and my eyes I was like, oh my gosh, I had to go up and talk to her. So she was wearing an Omnipod on her back, but upper back just to the side of her spine. So kind of like between her shoulder blade and the spine, there's like a soft spot right there.
Yeah.
And then we're both like, it's touching her back.
Yeah, I need to try.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, best absorption ever. It's not in the way, because even if you lean back against a chair, that part is usually not against a chair. I guess she's
Right.
sitting around in a throne chair. She said the only thing was it could be a little hard for her to put it there herself, so her husband put it on for her.
Cool.
But I thought that was,
It's interesting.
yeah, I figured it would be interesting to see you light up.
That's definitely off label. But yeah, the thing is, I was touching myself there, because when you touch, you sort of, and then you try to see, like, I feel like the worst place to put it is any muscle. So like, I want to stay away always from my muscles. I'm not as muscular as you are, but I think I am muscular. Let's put it this way, a little bit. And when you hit the muscle, it just hurts. And, especially after a day or two, it hurts quite a bit. And so I try to avoid muscles. And so sometimes there are like areas that, okay, I show my biceps, right? So I would never put it in my biceps, because here is the muscle, right? It's like really hard when I do this, when I flex the muscle. So I was flexing my back, tried to see if there's a muscle or not. But I think right there in the middle, there might be. But I think if you have, it also depends on the fat layer and like how muscular you are. The more muscular you are, the more difficult it might be for you to use these alternative sites. But yeah, what you were gonna say?
I think the one, so if you go online, search for here, where can you inject insulin, and where can you put insulin pots or infusion sites. It's usually back of the arm. It is abdomen, upper glutes, upper buttocks, and it's thighs. I think that's the area. So those that are generally recommended. I mean, I've seen people wear, so that one was the Omnipod. I've seen people wear it, that's the CGMs, in a lot of other places. I think you and I've talked about it before. I've seen even people wear it on the forearm. So it definitely works, even if it's not directly into fatty tissue. But to your point, there might be more discomfort. Also, if you inject insulin directly into muscle, it might be absorbed faster. So there's some different things there that
Right.
So
And
I try to rotate I've only really structured when it comes to my long-acting insulin. So that one, I also have a little notepad, like a little Post-it, where I always take my long-acting insulin in my upper buttocks or my bikini line. So I have I don't draw very well, but I have a little drawing of my backside with like a panty line, and then I put a little cross. Every time I take my injection, I put a little cross, and that means every morning when I take an injection, I kind of note down where I take my insulin, and that way I get the whole rotation. So I don't inject in the same precision every time. And then for my rapid acting insulin, my mealtime, I don't have a structure. I just try to sort of move it around.
Right. Because you take it more often, right? And writing everything down might be like kind of hard or like consuming a lot of brain power. But where is the bikini line? I mean, I'm sorry, this is like, is this the top part of the bikini or the bottom part? I just
Both. So
both.
imagine that you're looking at somebody's derriere and you'll see the panty. So there's an upper line and then there's a lower line. And then
Okay.
I just go along the upper line, above and beyond, along the lower line, above and beyond. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So you also inject yourself on your back, sort of, because the bikini line is on your back, lower back. Okay.
I mean, my bikini is not that high. It doesn't sit up under my arms. It's a bikini panty, not the top.
All right. Should we do the next episode in a bikini?
I mean, if you're gonna show up in a bikini, then sure, we'll do that.
I'll think about it.
Sure, everyone will appreciate that. So you said you had a whole list of pros. Do you want to do like a rapid fire and you list 2 to 3 or 4? I'll give you up to 4
Yeah.
from pros. Just rapid fire.
I will try rapid fire. I'm not very good at this, but I'll try. And might repeat some of them that I already talked about. But like number 1, at night, minimum sleep interruptions, getting up with perfect blood sugar almost every morning when I'm in the automated mode on the pump. I think that's a big one. Another one is I don't really use alerts on my CGM anymore. Just a few months ago, I still did that. I just don't do it. I feel the algorithm I have right now is fine-tuned so well that I can turn off the alerts, and I sort of trusted that it will just manage the blood sugar where I want them to be in 99% of the time. And I'm actually that confident that I almost don't use alerts. Like I still get these urgent flow alerts sometimes, but I just don't feel like I need them. And just a couple months ago, I think I was still using them, but now I just saw it on my phone, like I don't have alerts on, and I was going like this for a couple months, and I don't mind. So I think it just gives you this comfort of like correcting for you when needed. I'm not recommending that someone does that, but yes.
Wait, so you just
So you're right.
build blood sugars?
I do, but I don't have alerts. Like I turned off my alerts on my phone, like CGM alerts, high and low. And I've been going without them for a couple months now. And I can say like I had no really crazy negative experience or where I would say, oh, I should turn on the alerts. I just didn't need them because the algorithm was doing enough work for me to sort of correct, or I just myself looked at the number on my phone and corrected. But I didn't feel like I needed the alerts. And I think the alerts
You
is
still
something
get
that,
low blood sugars.
yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
And the alerts were something that
Build them.
I'm not recommending that someone does this, but it's just the alerts are something that really can bother you quite a bit. And I just This is just an illustration like how good the algorithm can be when you program it well and when you have everything fine-tuned. One more, pump is tracking everything for you. When you're on AID, it's tracking the CGM numbers, it's tracking all the insulin that's delivered, when exactly, if you're putting carb counts in your pump when you're bolusing, it's tracking everything. So when you go see your endo, they download the data and they see everything. And it's just a lot of information that we have to often track manually, or maybe we should. I do it sometimes still, but when I don't do, I still have everything is recorded, right? So I think it's a benefit because it just tracks everything for you automatically in the background. Can I do one more?
Yes, you're allowed to do one more.
Okay. And then, these options to do extended bolus with doesn't work on Omnipod 5, doesn't work on iLet, but with Tandem or Loop to do extended bolus when you eat a meal where you want to split your bolus or deliver it over a longer period of time, you can just enter it in the pump once and you're done with it. You don't have to, when you eat pizza, you don't have to bolus twice or 3 times later on. You just do it once and you pre-program the whole extended bolus. I think that's a really nice feature where you're automating the double or triple bolus or injection, if you know what I mean. Yes.
You have more?
I mean, more, of course. I talk about the super bolus or like borrowing insulin from the future in previous episodes, so I'm not gonna bring up this one. But if you want to know what it is, then you need to listen to the previous episodes.
Yeah, the previous episodes where we talked about insulin and insulin dosing and insulin timing. So I think I want to round this up by saying I think you have a lot of solid pros for insulin pumps. I think
But
for me, but yeah, you can hear but coming. For me, I don't think it's the right choice right now. I think for me, insulin pens still give me the level of diabetes management that I'm looking for, level of control that I'm looking for. But and there's a double but here. There's a new pump coming, hopefully in the next few years or sooner. That's called Luna Diabetes, which is a nighttime insulin patch. So it's meant to give you the benefit of insulin pump during the nighttime. And you can do MDI, so multiple daily injections during the day. That solution, I'm going to be the first one to try that if I can get my hands on it, because that for me combines the best of pump technology with the best of pen technology. And that I'm excited about. And I think that's going to be my first sort of venture back into pumps. And who knows, maybe that's going to lead me to complete switch over to pumps. But I think that's my journey.
is there any more information available about this Luna? Like what kind of insulin it will be working with, or like how the day will look like when you're using MDI during the day and sort of like this new unique pump overnight? Can you share like more details, or is it still sort of not, this information is not released or available?
There's a lot of information online. You go to Luna Diabetes, their website. They are currently recruiting. Let's see if they're still recruiting when this episode goes out, but they're recruiting for their study. So if you're interested in that, they're recruiting out of 3 cities. I don't quite remember. I just know none of them are the city I'm in. So I couldn't enroll in the study because it was too far away. But you can always go online, search for a clinical study with Luna Diabetes. But what it's going to be a nighttime patch. It's about the size, I think, of Dexcom 6, I believe, or Dexcom 5, so around that size. And you fill it with rapid-acting insulin, real-time insulin, and you can wear it for up to 12 hours overnight. And it talks to a Dexcom. It's going to be iCGM compatible, so all of the CGMs are compatible. So it's going to be up to the CGM manufacturers. But right now they're testing it with Dexcom. It's going to be communicated. So basically like a hybrid closed loop pump, but just only for nighttime. You still take your long-acting insulin and you still take your mealtime insulin during the day. But what it does is that it can adjust high blood sugars overnight, basically. Because you already have a long-acting insulin on board. You will always have insulin on board, but it will prevent you from having highs overnight.
Okay, yeah.
And
Now that you
also
explained it, I think it makes a lot of sense to me because you will still have, and we talked about this before, but I didn't quite get it, but I think now I get it. Because you're still taking your long lasting. So even when you sleep, you will put this patch on, I guess. you will still have some long-lasting insulin in your body going on, and this pump will probably be doing something like corrections when needed. So when you go high, it would just give you some rapid acting, and yeah, that sounds interesting. I wonder if it will also have availability to like prevent lows. I can imagine the maximum it can do is to stop giving you the rapid acting, right, from Luna. But anything that's in your system, it cannot do anything about it. But I guess maybe it will also be able to prevent lows. Let's see. Do you know if it will or not?
From what I've heard, they haven't seen lows, but we'll have to wait until we see the actual, results of the studies. And since I'm ongoing.
I'm getting ahead of everyone. Yeah, we didn't talk at all about like which automated insulin delivery system or insulin pump integrates with what CGM sensors. Should we do that, or you think it's too much information for this episode? And
I think it's because I think it's something that might also sway people's choice, in the sense that right now in the US market, we have Freestyle Libre, we have Dexcom, we have Eversense, which is an implantable sensor, and we have the Medtronic CGMs. Yeah, and I believe they're all iCGMs, which is a label for how they can integrate. So in theory, they should all be able to work with all the pumps, but that's just not the case. Will a system's what an insulin pump, which CGM it works with, would that sway your choice for which kind of insulin pump you would choose?
For me, yes. I would not use a pump that doesn't work with Dexcom. I think I want to stay with Dexcom. And I think Dexcom is by far the best CGM for any sort of pump integration. Oh, maybe not by far. I think Eversense, which is the implantable sensor, which almost nobody is using right now, could also be a good solution for me personally. I am not a big fan of integrating Libre. I know a lot of people want that feature, and a lot of people are using Freestyle Libre and are on automated insulin delivery system, and it works perfectly for them. The reason why I don't like it is because Libre doesn't have calibration, and I just feel any sensor that I cannot calibrate, I don't want to use it in AID, and just that's the main reason. And there's a lot of development, like a lot of new integrations are happening. So I think it's fair to say that the companies have started doing a lot more in terms of like integrating different algorithms with different pumps and with different CGMs. So there's now more choice for everybody, which is great. I think, if that continues that way, I'll be super happy. And I wrote down like, what is the current situation? But since it changes so much, I'm not sure if we should now specifically say, okay, as of today, this is how it is, because also every region is a little bit different. So what do you think? Should we talk about it, or should we let everyone just do their own research in their country and talk to their medical team to figure out what's available to them? Because I don't know what is better.
I think, if you can go through it quickly, usually it's best with a grid where you like just set it up.
Right. Okay. I'll try.
Okay.
So Tandem Control IQ, and please take this with a grain of salt. And mostly this information is US. Control IQ Tandem Pump integrated G6, G7 sensors, and Libre 2 Plus. The Omnipod 5 works with G7, G6, Dexcom, and Libre 2 Plus as well. For iPhone users only, Dexcom G6. Again, this is US. This all that I just said is for US. Some of the other countries are a little bit delayed, so it might not be available yet in other countries. And then we have Medtronic 780G, which works currently with the Simplera Sync and Guardian sensor from Medtronic. But the plan is, I'm hearing that Medtronic made a press release that they will be working with Abbott sensors. I'm not sure if they are already or will be. I don't know anyone who has this combination, but I think it's really nice that Medtronic allowed this combo. And it's promising for the future that maybe even more integration we will see. And what's really interesting is that the iLet works with Libre 3 Plus, not Libre 2 Plus. And the Twist pump, which she's launching this quarter, will be launching with Libre 2 Plus integration, but it's also cleared for using with Eversense sensors. So Eversense sensors now can be used in AID system with Twist, with the Twist pump from Sequel, once it's launched and once this rollout is made. But it's the first pump that will integrate with Eversense, which I just learned a few days ago, and I think that's quite exciting, especially for those who are on Eversense CGM, if there is anyone like this listening to this. Anything I said that you think is wrong, or again, take it with a grain of salt?
Yeah, just look it up. I just double check. So iLet also works with Dexcom G7. It's not only Libre.
Okay.
So that would
Okay.
be
Thank you for
that there.
yeah. Thanks for the correction. Okay. Cool.
But I think it's interesting. So if you are interested in a specific insulin pump, you can always go to the manufacturer website and look at integration.
Yeah.
And there you can see which devices it integrates with, if it has a phone app, which phone models it integrates with. I think it's especially see that for CGM users, some people get disappointed when they realize that their smartphone does not integrate with the device. So it's always a good thing to check all these things, because if you also have to go out and buy a new smartphone or, something like that, then it ends up becoming very expensive. It's things to think about. There's a lot of things there.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to do another episode in the future where we would maybe talk even more about these individual models and like what exact features they have and how they are different. I feel like right now this is above my pay grade. Maybe we need to invite someone who can talk about this, or we need to do, at least me, I don't have this deep level of understanding right now that off the top of my head I could talk about these things and the individual feature, but I think it will be really interesting to compare the pumps and the AID systems from the perspective like what exact features they offer and how they are different. Because that might help someone to make the right choice or have just more information. What do you think about that, Crystal?
I love that. And maybe anyone listening who's still with us, thank you for still listening. But if you have any systems that you want to learn more about, please leave us a comment down below this video, this podcast, and we kind of can get a feel for which systems you want to learn more about.
And I hope we brought some helpful information. If yes, and if not, also write it in the comments to let us know. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our next chat in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Tom. I think you nailed it. It's really cool to learn from your experience, hear the good and the bads. And although you didn't convince me to make the switch, that was also uphill. I thought this was super helpful and very insightful. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll let everyone decide if insulin pump is for them or not, because everyone has different preferences and different needs. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.
Bye-bye.